Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Ellen Burbrink. I've been a veterinarian at Crosspoint Animal Hospital for about 14 years, and I just want to talk a little bit about a subject that has been coming up more and more frequently, which is inappropriate urination and our sweet kitty friends. We're seeing this more and more now because of all the anxiety and stress going on at home, and this definitely can cause some issues and affect quality of life of both of our kitties and our owners. So I just want to talk about some causes and maybe some things that we can do to try to help these guys out. So this is sort of a summary of a very large study, actually 4 studies that they combined, both in the United States and in Europe, where they did a retrospective study on 23,000 cats and kind of looked at the ultimate causes of inappropriate urination in these cats. And what we found is in 55% of them, they were ultimately diagnosed with feline idiopathic cystitis, which is a very fancy term for a kitty that has bladder inflammation, and we're not sure why, but what we figured out is it's probably related to stressors in the environment. The second most common cause was something called urethral plugs, which is usually a mucus or a blood clot plug that can cause urethral obstruction and can be fatal. So we definitely have to be careful with these guys, especially our boy kitties, to make sure that they are peeing. 14% of them will have bladder stones, which we'll talk a little bit more about. And then I think it's really important to note that the rest of them, 15%, this is where we're going to find our urinary tract infections and our bladder abnormalities, things like that. So urinary tract infections, although we think a lot of these guys would have infections, it turns out that the vast majority of them do not actually have infections. Important to screen them for it, but that's not usually what's going on in our kitty friends. So even though I say it's idiopathic, meaning that we don't really know why, there is a ton of research going on. And these are just some of the journal articles where I pulled some of this information from. But there's a lot of research that's been going on for the past 10 years about why are cats getting stressed out? Why can't some of them manage it? What are those types of stress? What's the role of nutrition? How can owners and vets help? So that's what we're going to kind of focus on today. So what's causing the stress? I know we love our kitties so much, but unfortunately the vast majority of the stress is caused by people, about 50%. And that can be anywhere from new babies in the house, kids coming and going from college. Right now, a lot of it is because we actually are home more. All of our kids are home more. The cats are not used to this. They're used to their normal routines, and we are definitely messing up the routines. And they're not very, very happy about this at all. Sounds can actually play a very large role in stressors for kitties as well, things that we don't even think about. Your neighbor may be doing construction on their house, or there may be loud vehicles going back and forth like garbage trucks, sometimes thunderstorms. If you live near train track areas or areas with high traffic, any of those sounds can definitely cause stressors in our kitties that we're not even aware of. And then other animals definitely play a strong role in this as well. New pets in the house, definitely a lot of inner cat aggression, inter dog cat aggression, ferals or other wildlife that are coming to your yard. Again, you may not even know that they're there, but your cat definitely does, and that can certainly play a role in their stress. So how does stress lead to problems in our kitties? And what we found is that it's actually both a brain and a bladder issue with these guys. So they become chronically stressed out for the reasons we just talked about: people, sounds, other animals. And then they get this fight or flight response. Most kitties, they get that initial fight or flight response. They get over it, life goes on. But for some of our kitties, that's not the case. And these increased stress hormones just stay around for a long, long time. And what can happen with this is that these stress hormones cause the mucosal lining of the bladder to become way more permeable. And they get inflammatory cytokines that are released in the bladder. So you get just lots and lots of bladder inflammation. This is actually quite painful for them. So now you've set up a situation with chronic pain. And then that chronic pain causes chronic stress. And then here we go around and around the circle again. Some people don't really know what a stressed out cat looks like. So they're like, there's no way my kitty's stressed out. He has the cushiest life in the world. But some things that we think are cute or sweet may actually be signs of a very, very stressed kitty. So hiding behavior, if they're not wanting to come out when other people are around, or again, you get that new puppy and then now you can't find Fluffy anymore. They're sleeping a lot more. They can do something called a feigned sleep, where they look like they're sleeping, but as soon as you move, their eyes are wide awake. So this is is a kitty that's definitely stressed out. Obviously, aggression, whether that's towards people or other animals, they can become way more clingy. So, most of our cats are sitting on our laptops anyway, but if that starts to increase even further, that can be signs of a stressed kitty. Psychogenic alopecia or over-grooming is one that I see a lot. Oftentimes, this is where they have completely licked off all the fur on their front legs or on their belly area, and can actually lead to infection. And of course, litter box issues, that's what most people will notice and they bring them in for. And then some of these guys can have what we call an abnormal startle response. So a loud noise, a lot of kitties will just turn up their head, look at you and be like, meh. But some of these kitties, you make a loud noise and they just completely freak out. And that's definitely a sign of a stressed kitty. What we look for in the clinic is something called the ureas, and what we will try to assess for them as these different kind of more technical terms or their clinical signs. And this was put together by Dr. Lelich at the University of Minnesota. But these are the things we'll make note of in your kitty's records. And kitties can have 1, 2, 3, or even all of these that come in. And these are the things that we want to look for as far as are things improving if these go away. So there's dysuria, which is like painful or difficult urination, stranguria, which is straining to urinate, plaquuria, which is urinating frequently and usually in very small amounts. Periuria is the one where they're urinating around the litter box or just anywhere in the house. And then, of course, hematuria is where we have blood in the urine. So all that being said, what can we do? And luckily, there's actually a fair amount that we can do. It's important to note that every cat is totally different in what they need. Some need 2, 3, 4 of these things. Some need all of these things. Some need one of these things. And it is a lot of trial and error to figure out what works. Antimicrobials are important if they have urinary tract infections, but as we discussed, a lot of them don't. But that is the first thing that we are always going to rule out. So when you bring your kitty in, we are absolutely going to do a urinalysis if we can, ideally full blood work as well, maybe even a urine culture. We've got to rule out medical problems first with these guys. Anti-anxiety medications can be very important as well. You can do over-the-counter ones like Zilkine, Composure, or Angstitane, which are easily found. And sometimes we got to go to the big boys, amitriptyline, Prozac, those types of medications to really help while we're working on decreasing stress in the environment. Occasionally, we'll dispense steroids to help reduce the inflammation. Glucosamine and chondroitin has also been found to have really good anti-inflammatory effects, not just in the joint spaces, but also in the bladder. Cosequin makes a really nice sprinkle capsule that you can put onto the food. Most cats really like it, so that's a good option. A lot of people are familiar with the pheromone therapies. These are your feel away sprays that you can spray around the litter box. They actually have plugins. It takes about 72 hours for those plugins to work, but they'll fill a small size room with some of those really happy pheromones to relax your kitty. They have things called Cat Attract. These are sprinkles that you can actually put in the litter box that help to make the litter box environment more enjoyable for them. Calming collars, we use these a lot, especially in some of our hospitalized cats. These are little purple collars you can put on your kitty friends, and it does help to relax them by releasing pheromones. This is not a smell that you can unusually smell, but it's something that they pick up on, and it can tend to help with relaxation. Environmental enrichment is a lot, and we'll kind of talk about those things in the next couple slides. And nutrition we'll talk about a little bit more in depth as well. Water is super key for these guys. Our kitties do not drink enough water, so we need to try to encourage that as best we can. A lot of kitties do not like drinking out of a bowl, so I always encourage my kitty owners to purchase fountains, or maybe even going to moist or canned food is a better option for you. Environmental enrichment is just a huge field. So we'll talk about a little bit of things that can help. Again, 1, 2, 3 of these things that can change, all of these things that can change. Every kitty is very different, but this is really on the pet parent to try to make some of these changes at home, and it really is absolutely essential to try to change up some things to help them reduce their stress. Interactive toys are awesome, and there's a ton of these out there. There's a pop and play you can see in the upper right corner there, just like an interactive cat toy. The little kitten sitting on one of those little things where the mouse goes around and they can play with that. Laser pointers are great. Obviously, don't shine them in your kitty's eyes, but laser pointers are awesome. Hiding spaces, so especially if you have some inner cat aggression, you need to have a place where other kitties can get away. You want to go vertical surfaces like cat trees where they can get up a lot higher. There are tons of cat videos on the computer, which are actually, if you type in, just Google cat videos. We have one of our hospital kitties that is absolutely obsessed with these, and she gets very mad when her videos are not on. So we'll put these on, and it shows pictures of birds and squirrels and bunnies just hopping across, and she will literally stare at these for hours. Definitely trying to increase play times. Take your kitty for a walk, as weird as that sounds, as long as it's not terrifying for them. But again, laser pointers to anything to try to increase them mentally and stimulate them. Window boxes, I think, are super cool, so cats can actually kind of get outside, but in a controlled environment. Obviously, some people just can't do this. Bird feeders and butterfly feeders. I don't know how nice this is for our birdies, but putting in one of those suction cup bird feeders to the window is like National Geographic for our cat. They absolutely love those. And then we talked about water fountains as well as a really key point to getting some more water intake. A couple other things to talk about. Litter box is really, really key here. Litter boxes should always equal the number of cats plus 1. I'm going to say that again. Number of cats plus 1. So if you have 2 kitties, you should have 3 litter boxes. If you have 4 kitties, you should have 5 litter boxes. And that's because cats are very, very particular about their litter box habits. Some of them want it scooped every single time they go to the bathroom. If they go in there and pee in that litter and it's wet, they're not going to go back until that's cleaned up for you. And if they don't have any other options, then they're going to pee on your ground or on your carpet or wherever else they can go. So scooping the litter box multiple times a day is really important. Washing that box weekly with a very mild detergent. Some of them like hooded. You can see that kitty in the bottom there. He may like a hooded litter box. Some of them prefer to pee in a hooded one, but defecate in a non-hooded one because they don't want to trap the smells. Some of them, the litter boxes are too small. I've got, unfortunately, a lot of really large cats. They just can't get their bodies in those tiny litter boxes. So increasing the size of your litter box. Those under the bed storage cases are very nice for that. Changing up the types of litter. Sometimes they prefer one type of litter to urinate on and a different type of litter to defecate on. Some kitties do not like to defecate on any litter, so I've had owners put carpet squares in the litter boxes because that's what their kitties prefer. Obviously, location is very important. You don't want it any near high traffic areas. You do not want to put it anywhere near their food. Nobody wants to eat in the bathroom, so don't make your kitties eat in their bathroom either. So location, very, very important. No loud noises, anything like that. Some of these litter boxes can be self-cleaning, which I think are awesome, but some of them look terrifying. There's a picture there of a kitty with one of those automatic cleaning ones. I mean, I don't know that I'd want to get in that. So just be aware that even though it might be easier for you, it might be really terrifying for your cat. Food puzzles are one of my absolute favorite recommendations. Our cats are hunters. You put their food in a bowl, they get really bored very, very easily, and that can be stressful for them because they're just bored. So they have these little things called feeder mice, which are the little blue things in the bottom right corner. You can get them on Amazon. You put a couple kibbles in there, you hide those all over the house. And cats, it becomes a really great game that they feel like they're chasing their prey down. You don't have to actually buy any of these food puzzle ones, like the one in the center is one you can get on Amazon, but the one on the top is just one that you can make out of toilet paper rolls. You just put little kibbles throughout the whole thing and it just gives your cat something to do. In multi-cat households, really important to try to help with any inter-cat aggression. If you have a kitty that likes to ambush another kitty, put a bell on the aggressive kitty. So that way the other cat always knows where they're at all times. And then also sharing brushes. So if you want to try to get a group scent in the house, so taking one brush, brush them all with one brush to get their scents on each other can be really helpful. If you do have areas that are currently soiled, we want to make those as unhappy as possible. So obviously cleaning them. Nature's Miracle is just one of my favorite because it's an enzymatic cleaner. but then making those areas really unpleasant to them. This is just one of those mats that you put underneath like a computer chair. Flip it over so it has little spikes forward. Kitties aren't going to go walk on that. So moving a potted plant in the area, tin foil, scat mats, citrus sprays. If it's just a room, then close the door. So we want to try to limit their options of where they can go. And this was a paper done in 2006 that really looked at environmental modification in the management of cats. And it was a very large study. And what they found is that really these things actually do work. Environmental enrichment led to a significant reduction in lower urinary tract signs, fearfulness, and nervousness in our kitties. So trying any of these things can definitely make a huge difference in helping these kitties get back into the litter box. The nutritional considerations, typically when you're going to come into the clinic for this issue, we're going to make a diet recommendation change. And it's for a variety of reasons. There's been tons of research on this. This is just one of the findings of a paper done just recently in 2015, that cats consuming a food designed to manage feline lower urinary tract disease showed an 89% reduction in the rate of recurrent episodes of FIC, which is the feline idiopathic cystitis. 89% reduction. So this is why we're going to make those diet recommendations, because they really can make a big difference. We are fortunate that there are also a ton of options available to us. Most of these are going to be prescription. We're going to talk a little bit about why. CD from Hills, and there's just tons of options available to us. There's a metabolic, so if you have a really chunky kitty who needs to lose weight along with urinary problems, we can do that. There's CD Stress, which also has some additional components to help reduce stress. Royal Canin has some that even have treat options, and then of course Purina has their own brand as well. So there's just lots and lots of options, different flavors, so hopefully we can find one that your kitty likes. One of the most common scenarios that I have is that my pet owners will call me and say, my cat's not going to eat this food. I put it down, he won't eat it, now what do I do? The issue with cats is they are creatures of habit. And if you just put a can of food down, chances are no, they are not going to eat it. It can take 2 to 4 weeks for a cat to decide whether or not they will decide to eat the food. So a couple things that can help, really putting down 2 bowls. So putting down a little bit of the new food and obviously their old food, and let your kitty decide when he or she wants to try the new food. This may result in you throwing away a lot of food, but it is what it is. Cats are just very finicky and they want what they want when they want it. If you are switching from all canned, if you're switching from all dry to canned, then it's really important to put that canned just on a plate. If you put canned food in a bowl and they're used to dry food, when they put their nose in that bowl, the aroma of the canned food can be very off-putting for them. So if you start with putting the canned on a plate first, it can be much easier for them to kind of decide, all right, I'll try this. Maybe mixing it in slowly, so putting half old, half new. Some cats don't like this. They know, like, you're messing with my food, I'm not happy. If you've only put a little bit of the canned food in their plate and then you put the rest in the fridge, it's important to warm that up. If you grab it out again, they don't really love cold food. Sometimes you got to use a new can every time. That's just what your what your kitty wants. So it's very important to kind of figure out what your cat wants, but really the most important thing here is time. They are not going to take to this very easily right away, so you need to give them plenty of time. Why can't we just use an over-the-counter food? Over-the-counter foods are required to meet certain minimum and maximums. Prescription diets were able to adjust certain vitamins, minerals, and proteins beyond what's required. So we're able to really tailor these diets specifically for the problem that your cat is having. Like those stress diets that I talked about, they actually have hydrolyzed casein and L-tryptophan, similar to what you get from the post-Thanksgiving turkey coma. Those are added, which are actually shown to help calm kitties. And then they have really significant adjusted levels of magnesium, phosphorus, and protein that all help to promote desirable urine pHs. They have antioxidants, omega-3 fatty acids, all of those things that are really different from any of their over-the-counter ones. So your prescription ones are really just the way to go with these guys. I'm going to briefly talk about bladder stones because this is also one of the big causes of feline urinary tract disease. I see this all the time. There are a couple of different types of bladder stones that our pets can get. The vast majority of them tend to be struvite, about 46%. That's a very smooth stone that you see there next to the ruler on the top left. And then the rest of them tend to be calcium oxalates. Those are very spiculated, kind of angry looking stones. Those are the ones that are kind of more towards the bottom right. And then there's, a bunch of other ones that they can get, but the vast majority of them are those two. We can typically diagnose these sometimes on ultrasound. We'll get really lucky, but x-ray is really the gold standard because they just show up so nicely on x-ray. You can see on this x-ray, the bladder is off to the right side. It's kind of right above that, on the upper right above that part that says right. All those bright white areas, those are actually stones within the bladder. Also important to note, whenever we have a kitty that has bladder stones, we're going to run full blood work because about 56% of cats with bladder stones will have concurrent chronic kidney disease. So it's important to diagnose these guys. Treating bladder stones, if it's struvite, which are those little tiny smooth stones, well, they don't have to be little tiny, they can be quite large. Those smooth stones, we're going to try to medically manage these as best we can. The good thing about struvite stones is that you can try to dissolve these, and a lot of our urinary diets that we already talked about actually are labeled for dissolution of struvite stones. There's another one made by Hills called SD that also works, standing for struvite diet. These can take 2 to 4 weeks to dissolve, which sometimes is much better than surgery. Sometimes we just can't. There's just too many. The cats are too uncomfortable. You can see kind of the pictures up there. I mean, this almost looks like kitty litter that's inside your poor kitty's bladder. So these ones can be a little bit more tricky to try to dissolve. Calcium oxalate stones, you can't dissolve those. You got to surgically remove them and then try to prevent them in the future. How do you prevent them? Hey, we're going to mention diet yet again. Again, struvite stones form in a very alkaline pH. So the urine is typically greater than 7.5. So we need a diet low in magnesium, phosphorus, and protein to acidify the urine. Calcium oxalate stones, on the other hand, form in a very acidic pH. So they're typically 5, 5.5, and they have a variety of factors that can form in them. So water, super key in these guys, but also we want to keep the oxalates, the calcium, the vitamin D, the fiber, the protein, all of that really, really low. So diet plays a very, very important role in these bladder stones. The most important thing with any time you have a kitty that has a litter box issue is communication. We're going to recommend all the gold standard. So we're going to recommend environmental enrichments, glucosamine chondroitin, changing up the foods, potentially rehoming kitties. So making a lot of adjustments in your life and in their life to try to get them back into the litter box. But really, some of this may not be feasible for your life. So if you just don't want to stop the treats because that's a bonding experience between you and your kitty, if you just do not want to deal with canned food, if you can't have any more litter boxes because there's just nowhere to put them, if you really can't rehome that new puppy, those are things that definitely you want to communicate to us. So if we give you all this information and you say, okay, great, everything's fine, and then you go home and realize you can't do any of this, it's just going to be a lot of frustration. So it's very, very important to communicate with us what's working, what's not working, and then that way, again, there's lots of things we can do. We can go back to some of those other things that we talked about and try some of those others because we have a lot of options here for us. And as always, we are here to help you with whatever you need. So definitely give us a call if you have any questions or if you have concern about your kitties. We're definitely here to help you. Thanks.